Peace and love, family. How is everyone doing tonight? Thank you for joining us on another edition of the RAM Book Club, Resurgence of the African Mind, where we seek to liberate African minds by reading one unit of work at a time. As you all know, we are starting off with the heavy hitter, Blueprint for Black Power by Amos Wilson. We are on chapter 14. We have been combing through it, family. This has been a really long chapter, 60 plus pages. So we had to break it down into 3 segments. This is our third and final segment of chapter 14. In the first 2 segments, we discussed race and economics, social relations and economics, global economics. We talked about the Koreans. We just hearing something in the background, family.
Molly Wop is rocking the stage on December
30th. What is that?
I don't know. I'm hearing some type of music.
Let me meet you.
Might be Brother Travis.
Yeah, and I mean,
Molly Wop is rocking the stage on December 30th at the New Year's Revolution.
I don't know what Brother Travis
is.
He's over shipping. I'm trying to mute his mic. Okay, there it is.
Okay.
I'm trying to mute his mic. So he's over there. He's in the chat. He's on a panel, but he's shipping out orders. So I guess he has his radio playing or whatever. But go ahead, sis. So you said this is our last
segment. So we talked about the Koreans. We talked about ethnic roads to riches. We talked about how did they get there. We talked about the Black American racial solidarity. We talked about immigration and the African American community. Now, this last segment, we're going to get into big benefits, costs of immigration. We're going to talk about the Asian Brotherhood, the White Brotherhood, as well as the Black Brotherhood. Family, my name is Lily La Poete Speaks. I am the author of Perceptions of a Misplaced African, Volume 1. Available on Kindle, on Amazon, and available on hard copy on www.lilylapoetespeaks.com. Dr. Maat is my co-host, and I'm going to let her kick it out for you guys. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a good day. Well, I hope you've had a good day, rather. I hope you enjoy the show.
Absolutely, sis. Peace and power, family. My name is Dr. Deanna Bailey, also known as Dr. Oyab. I am the co-founder of Anime Productions, the adjunct professor over at the School of Engineering. I teach digital communications, wireless communications, and I was scheduled to teach signal processing, but I was informed that I will not be teaching signal processing this semester because it won't be offered to the students. So I got a free semester, Sister Alima. I'm good though. I'm really okay with that because it's I'm like telling you the time that it takes to sit down to create a course, to create materials and then grade papers. Like, I'm so happy that I actually have a semester off, so I can kind of on other things. But I am also the co-producer of Meltrek, which is a hip hop animated series that teaches history, African history from an African perspective. You can visit animeproductions.com to get your copy of Meltrek, or go to Amazon and just simply type in Meltrek, MELTREK, to get the digital download. I'm looking forward to this discussion, sis. And I know that when we started this book club, we started with like a heavy hitter. Like, this really, like, I think we scared a lot of people, Sister.
That's what happened.
With this Blueprint for Black Power, because I'm telling you, you put a filler out there. Remember, you and I were talking about it, and you put a filler out there just to see how many people would be interested in scrutinizing this text, because we're not just reading books. Like, this isn't the average book club. Again, you got to think of the name. Listen to the name, the resurgence of the African mind. So we're talking about the regeneration, the rebirth, right, of the African mind. So our goal is to reclaim our African identity and our African consciousness, and that is a strenuous process, sis. Like, that's not something that just happens when you read one book by Dr. John Henry Clark, or one book by Jope, or one book by Dr. Ben, or one book by Dr. Frank. Like, this is an ongoing process to transforming our consciousness. And so, this is a heavy hitter. We scared a lot of people off, sis. You had 100 likes. A lot of people said, "Oh, Sister Alima, Dr. Maat, I'm in. I want to be a part of the book club." And then, people signed up, and a lot of people purchased the book. They definitely purchased the book. But as you can see, week in and week out, we may have at most 15 people who show up. I mean, people may watch it later on, but we may have a handful of folks. But that's all right. I'm not tripping on the numbers. Because I would rather have a handful of serious people than have a chat room you know, full of folks who are serious about, you know, reclaiming our African consciousness, or, you know, and anybody, and people who aren't about African liberation. I'll say that. So, you know, I'd rather have a handful of folks that's about it, you know. So I'm looking forward, sis, to this discussion. As you stated before we went live, Dr. Amos Wilson went out with a bang. He went out with a bang in this chapter. And this was a very powerful chapter. And Sister Aleem, I think that every Black person in America, every African person in America or across the diaspora should read this book, and definitely read this chapter on race and economics, because he's teaching us, he's giving us literally the blueprint. How are other ethnicities successful, you know, financially? How do they operate? You know, what is the formula? Because we look around and we see the Asians, you know, moving past us. We see the Europeans moving past us. We see the Arabs moving past us. And we're wondering, how is this possible? And I feel like Dr. Amos Wilson did a wonderful job explaining how they did it, you know, and not to compare us to them, because, you know, we definitely had a different history. Therefore, we have a different psychology than these people. But I think that Dr. Amos Wilson did a great job, sis, in just giving us the blueprint. How did they do it? How were they able to, you know, accomplish the things that they've been able to accomplish? So anyway, sis, please kick us off with page 346 at the bottom, cost and benefits of immigration.
All right, cost and benefits. So Baba says that it may be relatively easy to argue that immigrants overwhelmingly of non-African descent, only a relatively small percentage of immigrants are of African descent, largely Afro-Cuban, Caribbean, with only a rather insignificant percentage from mainly Africa, are economic and social benefit to the country. Certainly, we cannot gainsay the fact that they have invigorated cities and suburbs, turned around some decaying neighborhoods in the inner cities, helped to reverse the shrinking populations of at least 10 of the nation's largest cities. Moreover, immigrants provide a workforce to fill low-paid jobs, and on the whole, may pay more taxes than they consume. It has been estimated that some 11 million immigrants earn at least $240 billion a year and pay more than $90 billion in taxes. Many cities are experiencing enormous difficulties in educating an exceptionally large influx of immigrant youngsters. This has added to the problems of pre-existing overcrowding, general inadequacy, and underfunding in many school systems, as well as the need to expand services to meet the special needs of immigrant school children, which, of course, you know, we've all heard that before, that, you know, because of the immigrants, certain things, certain services are no longer as good because of the demand, the increase that they now have. Education suffers, this, that, and the third. But they're definitely saying that they pay more taxes, though, than regular people because they are immigrants. Down at the bottom here, it says that the belief that immigrants do not displace Americans in the labor market has been repudiated by a number of careful studies in recent years. A consensus is developing that for each 6 or 7 immigrants, one unskilled or blue-collar job is lost to Americans. But they also, as Baba noted, that they're also willing to do certain jobs that a lot of Americans don't want to do.
Right.
So that too keeps them employed over other minority groups. On page 348, we cannot deny that there is a struggle between African Americans and newcomers over jobs and access to scarce public and private resources. Many African Americans, 73%, according to Business Week poll, believe that the success of immigrants has in good part come at the expense of the Black community. They also believe that both white-owned and immigrant-owned businesses would rather hire immigrants than African Americans, especially African American males. Furthermore, immigrants do most damage to the job prospects of native-born high school dropouts, already hard-pressed to find meaningful employment. And I thought that that was interesting, and that's very true as well. It's very, very rare to go into an Asian business, not an Asian business rather, but a foreign business, and to see someone who is not their same race working there. That's like very rare. You know, like to see a Black man working in an Arab shop, it's like, wow. Like they must be like really good friends or something, because they make sure that they keep that in-house.
Absolutely. Well, sometimes I think, you know, that they do it, sis, you know, just for the sake of being able to say, oh, I did hire one of you. Like, even though I had this business, it's in a predominantly Black neighborhood. No, I'm not just sucking the life out of it. Because after all, I do have, you know, one of you work here. You get what I'm saying? Like, sometimes I think it's just to say.
Right. To appeal to our senses. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so moving on further here, we're talking about the General Accounting Office. And it said the General Accounting Office in LA said that 3/4 of the unionized African-American janitors who were cleaning high-rise office buildings were displaced by Mexican immigrants in a 5-year period. And I've heard of that happening in a lot of places where they downsized and a lot of Black people lost their jobs and they were replaced with a lot of immigrants because they paid the immigrants less money.
Absolutely, sis. And when I read this passage, I thought about my family. Back in 2007, we owned a business called Evelina's Cleaning Service. It was named after in honor of my grandmother, Evelina. And my cousin, who's probably in the chat room, Shawnee, she can attest to what I'm saying. But we had a company called Evelina's Cleaning Service. At one point, we were bringing down $17,000 a month. All right. And it was a family affair. We would go in, you know, I had my children, I had my cousins, my aunties, my uncles. We would go in and we would clean buildings for Bon Secours Hospital, which is a huge hospital system here in Baltimore, Bon Secours. But anyway, they had a campus. The campus had about 4 or 5 buildings on it. The family would go out at nighttime, maybe around 8, 9 o'clock at night. We would go in for a couple hours. 2 or 3 people would hit like each building and we would leave, you know. But they I'm not gonna say they fired us, but they did get our contract because a Mexican company wanted to come in and clean it at a substantially lower price than we offered. And I think they said they were able to cut it in half, you know. And so we ended up losing, you know, our contract with Bon Secours healthcare system because the Mexicans, not the Asians, I'm sorry, it was a Hispanic, it wasn't the Asians. It was Hispanic. They came in and underbidded our contract, and that's how we lost it, sis. So, you know, I just wanted to share that little story just to demonstrate how, you know, the immigrants will come over and they'll work, you know, for cheap. That's and in turn, you know, a lot of us will lose our jobs or lose contracts because, you know, and then we say, well, no, we're not willing to take pennies to clean this building. And so we walked away from it.
That's right.
Yeah. Just wanted to share that story, sis.
I'm sorry that happened to you guys, sis. That happened to so many families here in America.
Yes, sis. So Baba's 100% correct.
Yes. Now moving on, Baba goes on to say that the primary goal of immigration has been family unity. And he says that immediate relatives of American citizens, spouses, children, parents can join their family without numerical limit, which of course also helps to build a massive wealth overseas, bring the family in. But going on to 349, Baba says that ethnic networking shuts out African Americans so thoroughly that a study of immigration in New York City concluded there are tens of thousands of jobs in New York for which the native born are not candidates. And I thought that was amazing, that there's already a certain like delegated jobs that you already know that you're not going to be able to get because these are foreign-owned entities, foreign-owned businesses, and they're not going to hire people unless they are of the same race and culture as them. Many African Americans have come to perceive entrepreneurial immigrants as aggressively exploiting their communities. This while hiring few community persons, entering into few business partnerships and other mutually beneficial arrangements with native residents, refusing to reside in the communities where they do business, and demonstrating the same anti-Black attitudes and prejudices as do native-born white Americans. It is clear that the immigrant and non-Black owners of the business and service organizations which thrive in African American communities or serve predominantly African American clients do not reside in those communities, provide little financial support to the community in the form of taxes and other types of contributions, and as a result, help to intensify the hyper-segregation, economic, and social isolation of African Americans. And that also is just another stereotype, which is really, it's not a stereotype, it's a fact, but it's just another fact that we know is very true. It's what we were just speaking of, how they'll come into our communities and they'll set up shop and they'll make money, but of course they don't live in our communities whatsoever. They have no intentions of contributing or bettering our communities, just only making themselves richer. And a lot of times their businesses that they do bring into our communities are detrimental. They don't typically bring in positive positive businesses aside from maybe, I guess, a gas station here and there.
Absolutely.
But it's typically a bunch of businesses that we don't even need anyway.
Right.
Without malice toward non-community immigrant and native-born non-resident owners of inner-city businesses and services, we must acknowledge that the tremendous outflow of monetary, human, material, and non-material resources from the African-American inner-city communities at the hands of these agents, in addition to the institutional racist practices of the nation as a whole, cannot be grievously harm these communities. The continuation of these private and public practices will not only maintain and hasten the further decline of the already too low level of African-American political and economic power, but will also accentuate and accelerate the precipitous increase in the social disorganization of inner-city communities. These practices help to increase their social problems, such as violent crime, homicide, family decomposition, joblessness, drug addiction, and the like.
Golly, so allowing foreigners to come into our neighborhoods and set up shop, it runs deeper, you know what I mean, sis?
Yeah.
Than just they're taking the money out, you know, of the community. It's like, yes, they're taking the money out of the community, but what are the effects of that?
That's right.
And look, increased social problems, violent crime, homicide, family decomposition, joblessness, drug addiction. So there's a lot of concomitant issues. You get what I'm saying? You know, with the wealth being taken from our communities. And so I think that he did a great job bringing it home. Did you want to say something, Brother Travis?
Yeah, I just reading this book. It just reiterates, and I knew about culture, but you know, I grew up in the you know, I left the slave culture as a young man. But the importance of culture and African-centeredness is you know, is critical. It really locked me into how critical culture and African-centeredness, you know, is, because the only way we can't out-capitalize the European. We can forget that. We can't create a capitalist system, a black capitalist system, and think that we can out-capitalize those who print money. The only way we can combat the Europeans' invasion and also, you know, foreigners that are coming in is a African-centered program with a cultural value system, meaning that it doesn't matter what, because when we sell to them, they won't buy from us because they have a dedication to their race and their culture and their people. So what happens is that the only way we can counter that is with cultural value. Doesn't matter what price that they come with, that I'm going to deal with my own because I know that it's a basis of my survival. That's what has to happen.
Exactly.
If only we understood that concept, though, Brother Travis and Sister Alima, that trading with each other and buying from each other is, you said, a basis of my survival. So it's based on, like, I know that in order for me to survive and thrive, this is a must. You know what I mean?
Right.
Only we could collectively grasp that concept, you know, we would be okay. I don't think that the vast majority of us believe that spending our dollars with each other, that our survival is based on that. I don't think that people think that. I'm saying the vast majority of us. I'm not saying that there aren't Black folks who don't get it. But I'm saying collectively, I don't think we get it that, look, spending our dollars with each other, man, this is how we're going to survive and thrive. I don't think the majority of us get it.
I think the basis of that is that the majority of us do not understand the concept of creating generational wealth. We understand the concept of creating wealth for self. And so if I'm only looking at it as creating wealth for myself and making sure that I raise my kids properly so that they go to college and create wealth for themselves, then we just have a society that continues on of people as just everyone do for self.
Yep.
So until we really understand the importance of establishing a system of wealth and a system of economic development for our children and their children to come, we're going to always be in this predicament.
I get in heated discussions with friends, and what I'm getting ready to say, I don't think that we can condition the adults to this concept. I think the teachers like yourselves can impute these into you.
Yep.
We can begin to we can begin to socialize them in a different way of what has failed for us. I think that's what we have to start, because culture is not just an intellectual understanding; it's a ritual. It is a process of which how you live your life on a daily basis, and so you function in this, you live in this, and I think that's where I don't think that we can transform most adults. I'm gonna say some, but most adults. But I think that re-socialize youth. I think that's where it's going to have to happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And brother, that's why, I always say this. I think I've made this clear on the show that is why I'm a huge proponent of African-centered education.
Yes.
And and giving that to, like you said, the babies, and trying to socialize them, in such a way that they are communal thinkers, and understand that success is not based on individual achievement and merit, but based on where we are communally, where we are collectively. And so remember, I was in a previous discussion, I was saying that we have to redefine success, to our children. Because just like Sister Alima said, we tell our children, go to school, get your education, get a great job, enrich yourself, and that is success, So we have an individualistic definition of what success is.
And it's tough for our parents, because my parents taught that. My parents taught to get a good education, get a good job, and you can write your own ticket with a good education. They never taught a African, which they don't understand that, coming from Tupelo, Mississippi. They had a value for education of the upper mobility. Most people come from the South, and migrated to the North. It was all about coming out of a social condition that they had in the South to be about upper mobility. Exactly. They didn't have a concept of nationhood. It was about evolving and progressing financially. That's what it was all about, education.
Absolutely. And my mother, who was a baby boomer, that's what she preached in our household. Everything was education, get a great job, go to school, get your education, go get a great job, and but I was reading the book by Michelle Alexander, The New Jim Crow, and in her book, she said that Black people only have, I want to say she said, a 2.8% chance of upward mobility. So while we preach upward mobility to our children, she said we only have, I believe, and maybe someone in the chat room can check, who's read the book, I believe she said we have a 2.8% chance of actually achieving upward mobility.
But wow. The second one is that those who came from the South, you had the war going on in 1938. Many whites were away at war, so they got into these manufacturing companies. Like my grandfather, he got into General Motors. What he made all week was a day's pay working for General Motors. When he was sharecropping in the South, what he did up north, working in the factories, was a day's pay. He said when he got his first paycheck, my grandmother thought he robbed a bank. That's how much he brought home coming from the South. They did, those who migrated and left the South and end up working in General Motors and things like that. They did, it did adjust their lifestyle.
Right, but bro, I said, brother, she wrote this book. This book was published in 2008, so I don't think
she's talking about now. She's talking about
the way that she put it in context, though,
is
she's talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in this particular book.
Yes, I agree now.
But you're right. During the migration, that was the whole purpose of the migration. They were, and remember, I was telling you about that book, Warmth of Other Suns, by Isabel.
I purchased that book. I'm reading it now.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, it was.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about that. She talks about that in the book. But where are we, Sister Alima?
We are. Hold on. I gotta change my page. Were we at 350? Yes, 350.
Okay, are we at the bottom, sis?
We're in the middle.
All right.
So right here, page 350, right where it says Butler, 1991. The economic progress of African Americans has historically correlated with the ebb and flow of immigrants. For example, Fusfield and Bates, 1984, point out that only with the cessation of immigration and the start of World War I did economic opportunity open the way to ending the coerced labor of the rural South. This is kind of what Brother was just speaking of.
Yep.
Top of page 351. Immigration policy is intimately tied to foreign policy, including economic aid, trade, cultural influence, military assistance, and political interferences. The impact of immigration on its power and socioeconomic prospects must be realistically and objectively faced up by the African American community. This customarily liberal, sharing community must confront the fact that in its relative poverty and powerlessness, it cannot continue to permit its vital resources to be commandeered by aliens. It must aggressively accumulate external earnings, retain as much of its internal resources as possible, and invest in itself first if it is to survive and prosper through the coming centuries. Moreover, the African American community must enhance its political power to the degree that it can effectively influence U.S. internal and external policies in its own interest and in the interest of African peoples worldwide. So it's the same thing that Baba has been reiterating over and over, is that we need control of our own resources. And we need to get to a point where we really need to understand that we need to invest in ourselves, spend with ourselves, make ourselves wealthy, and stop making everyone else wealthy, because we really have the means literally to make ourselves wealthy, like all other immigrants do, by working together.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sis. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I was, when we were reading, like in the beginning of this particular chapter, when Dr. Amos Wilson, he was giving us like a cursory review of, I believe it was the Asians, it was the Koreans, and he was just talking about how they operated. He said that the wealthy Koreans will fund like the business endeavors of other Koreans.
That's right.
And I'm just, and I'm not saying that like, the Jay-Z's and Beyonce's and them don't, because I don't know what they do with their money. And I used to be one for saying the celebrities don't do this, but at the end of the day, we don't know what they're doing with their money, To
a certain extent. I used to say that too, but now that I'm learning a little bit more, and we kind of do know what they do with their money. Now, we don't know overall what they do with their money, but if they are investing in type of businesses that are, if they're investing in things like businesses for other people that are somehow going to facilitate more resources and more economics for other people, we would know that. You see what I'm saying? Like that'd be public knowledge.
Yeah.
So I'm not so convinced that, we're actually not aware of what it is that they're doing. Because if we want to look up all their charitable things that they give to the Red Cross and all that other shit, we can find that. You know what I mean? So we might hear about them. Jay-Z goes out and bails 100 niggas out of jail or some dumb shit like that. Right. That's public record. So if he went and invested $100,000 so a brother can open up a youth center in the community, we would fucking know that shit.
We know about it, right? And I'm just like, and I'm not going to say that I was envious, but I did feel some type of way when I was reading, that cursory review, and it talked about how the Koreans, the wealthy Koreans, will fund projects of other Koreans. So I did feel some type of way, but at the end of the day, I understand that it's in their culture.
That's how they were raised.
Yeah, that's how they were raised. And
do you remember when Dr. Dre gave all that money to USC? I think it was like $25 or $50 million.
I remember that.
I was just shocked.
I didn't understand the point.
I don't remember what happened.
Well, he what's the name of that Jewish? I can't think of his name that he works with. He's real popular in entertainment. He's a producer. I can't think of his name. Jay-Z.
S.
I can't think of his name, but a lot of rappers. He's a producer, and they actually have a documentary with him and Jay-Z and other various rappers. The documentary, I'll definitely get that. but Aveen is his name. Aveen.
Oh, okay, yeah, Jimmy.
Yeah. And so what it was amazing. It amazed me, and it was another guy just happened with. He went to Michigan State. He gave like $10 million to Michigan State, and come out of the ghetto, like Dr. Dre, come out of the ghetto. But you give like $50 million to USC. It ties into what Dr. Amos Wilson has been preaching to us early on. That it's our cultural conditioning. We don't have a sense of value of ourselves as a people. And so we finance everybody else because we don't have a sense of value of us, as a people. It just what he's tying into, and I was looking for the answer for that. But it's rooted in our sense of culture and our sense of value and our sense of lack of Afrocentrism. That's
it also stems from, brother. It also stems from the fact that they understand who their wealth comes from. They understand that their wealth comes from these Jewish entities and these European entities. So therefore, they're going to do things to appeal to who their wealth comes from. So if you're paying me billions and millions of dollars, then, I'm not going to go and take and donate some of my earnings to the local ghetto community in Chicago. You know what I mean? I'm going to go and put my money somewhere where Massa will say, oh, wow, look at him. He's being great.
But the Israelis don't do that. The Israelis get reparations from white people, but they finance their agenda with that money.
That's right.
Because it's tied into Judaism. Judaism is the nucleus in which they affirm themselves. I know I grew up with Jewish friends. They know that Torah, from childhood, and they have institutions that that they go to after school that reflects their sense of values, back into culture, time back into they know about the Holocaust. They can tell you a detail about the Holocaust. Their children. They emphasize why Jews need to stick together and finance their particular agenda. They get millions of dollars a year still from Germany and the United States in reparations, and they use that to finance their program.
And that's the key thing that you mentioned in all of that, though, that separates them from us is the way that they were raised. It's their educational value. It's their culture. That's the bottom line.
Yes.
You can't expect people to do something that they don't know any better.
True.
Right. Very true.
True.
Very true.
We don't have many cultural norms in the Black community. We've separated ourselves from Africa, and now we're not Africans anymore. Now we're the Black community, and the Black community is a mess.
Yes, it is.
Gotta agree with that. A hot mess too, sis.
Boiling mess.
A hot mess. A hot mess.
Where we at? 352.
Yep, we're at we're getting ready to start this next section on internal migration within the United States. I thought this was kind of funny, sis. The flight from diversity. So Dr. Amos Wilson says it is tempting to imagine the influx of immigrants into the United States as producing an ethnically and culturally mixed population which values and profits from its cultural diversity. However, an analysis of recent U.S. Census data indicates that this is not the case. Actually, the opposite trend seems to be occurring. In reporting on the demographic study of census data, Forbes magazine 94 revealed the following results. I'm not going to read all of this, but basically in this article, and I had this underlined at the top of page 352, he says that racial self-sorting is being exacerbated by minority immigration unleashed by the 1965 immigration reform. So basically, Dr. Amos Wilson is saying that during the 1965 immigration reform, a lot of immigrants came over, right? But he's saying that when they came over, it wasn't like they mixed into the current population. It was kind of like when they immigrated here, when they migrated here, they started their own, I want to say enclaves, sis, that they formed their own enclaves when they came over to the US. And then on the flip side, at the bottom of 352, Dr. Amos Wilson says that the native-born Americans who do not like living among the newer groups, they end up fleeing to their own enclaves, all right? He said, we seem to be seeing the beginning of a flight from diversity. So you had an influx of immigrants coming over here, but they didn't mix with our population. What they did was they formed their own enclaves, And then you had the native-born Americans say, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to live around these foreigners. So then I'm going to either move and we're going to form our own enclaves, which ignited which Dr. Amos Wilson calls it a flight from diversity. So he says, while it is trendy to speak of the global village, because a lot of us like to say, oh, we're one. It's one village, right? We like to say that. But he says, while it's trendy to speak of a global village of multiculturalism, diversity, and the like, ethnocentrism, ethnic conflicts, and ethnic subpartitioning of the nation in the world seem to be accelerating rather than diminishing. This implies that the assimilationistic ideology which guides the thinking of African-American leadership establishment informs the emotional and cognitive platform for its political and social economic plans and activities is not grounded in reality. So Dr. Amos Wilson is saying, you guys, we walking around here screaming diversity, right? Screaming diversity and calling, this world a global village and multiculturalism. But he's saying that none of this stuff is rooted in reality, right? Because this is not what's actually going on. He said, therefore, the programmatic approaches and activities sponsored by this establishment in which it imposes on the African-American community are not only unrealistic and counterproductive, but are actually undermining and destroying the ability of the community to survive, to let alone prosper. And I remember Dr. Amos Wilson in previous chapters, he drove this home, Sister Alima, that no other ethnic group moves like this. Like nobody is all inclusive. He said, in fact, most of the ethnic groups are very exclusive. Right. And because we're not an exclusive people and we desire to be inclusive, that is what is destroying the Black community. We permit everybody in, sis.
That's right.
We do.
That's right.
The Asians come into to our neighborhoods. They feel comfortable setting up shop. You got the Arabs. And it's to the point, sis. And I remember I was on the phone with Brother T. And he'll tell you, I was on the telephone with him and I had to get gas one night. And the Arab merchant, he was flirting with me a little bit, sis. And I checked him, very harshly. And he was on the phone, sis, cracking up. He's cracking up, right? He's cracking up. But we were just talking. He was like, he's like, some of those women around there probably entertain him. So yes. That's why he feels so comfortable, saying things to Black women. And I told him, I think it's a little bit further. I took it a little bit further than that. Not only did he feel comfortable, because maybe other women, have flirted with him, but no Black man probably checked them for doing it, sis. You get what I'm saying? There may have been some chicks, some Black females who have entertained him, but he never got checked by a brother to say, no, you don't come into our neighborhood, dude, and holler at, my sister, my mother, or my auntie. You get what I'm saying? So I think it probably was like a combination of both. And that's why he felt so comfortable. But I say all that to say, sis, we allow anything into our community. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Some in the community, they make money. You got them in the community, hollering at the females now, having sex with you got all sorts of stuff that we are permitting because we are a very inclusive people. And it definitely is destroying us.
And I was wondering, should have checked this guy? I was in the store and there was a Black guy who worked at the store and he did something who worked there, and he told him to get his mother MF ass in there and stack those racks. Now, he was a Black guy, now if it was a woman, it'd be different. But in my face, I saw him address that brother like that. And that brother, he punked that brother. He did it. He went in there and did that. He let that guy talk to him like that, and sometimes I say maybe I should have stepped up and in defense of that brother, but he was a grown man, and I was saying what I rationalized was that he should step up his game, and not let that brother disrespect him like that, he wasn't an old guy, he was a guy around my age, and he let that guy address him like that, I never go to that store anymore, and but I still sometimes say maybe I should have punked his ass, and got Woody, but he was a young guy, and I was like, he needed to man up, and it was a woman there working there, and what I think is that it was a bad situation because he had a Black woman working behind the counter, and we allowed him and he allowed that man to handle him that way, you know. And it really, you know, I never went to that store anymore, but I was like, maybe I should have dealt with him, you know. You're right, though, sister, what you're saying, you know. We got, our men, we got to deal with these people who come in our communities, and we haven't dealt effectively with these Arabs coming in here disrespecting our women and our people. You're right. You're right.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. And they're too comfortable for me. They're too comfortable for my liking.
They are too comfortable.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. You're absolutely right. And I've seen them flirt with black women, and they just giggle, you know. And,
no, I didn't giggle. I was nasty. I'm not gonna say on the air. Probably got my auntie in the chat room. She told me she was gonna be watching. I have a cousin in the chat room, but I was nasty. Brother T, I'm gonna mention it one day when we on the show and let Brother T tell the story. But I got right nasty with him. I'm very, very nasty with him.
You're right, though. We need to step up our game. It's a lot of this stuff is on black men. What we tolerate in our community, and we haven't been organized and militaristic like we're supposed to be.
That's right.
I actually appreciate you saying that, brother, because Jesus Christ, I mean, when you try to bring that up to people, you know, it's just when you try to bring that up to some black males, some of our brothers, they get offended, you know, like, well, I'm trying, and I don't think they, you know, they take it as an attack, you know. When, you know, like earlier today, I was on a post and I was just saying how, and I'm gonna make this short because I want to, you know, I know we have like 12 more pages to cover, but you know, we were on a post and we were discussing a young lady in the DC area that she went out to the club with some girlfriends, and they said at the end of the night she was arrested, she was drugged, and she was gang raped by some DC police officers. And so a young sister, she's about 20 or 21 years old. She put a picture of the young lady up. Her name is Julia. Put a picture up of Julia. And she was just saying how she felt, you know, that if, you know, she said if black men, you know, protect the black women, you know, I don't think that things like this would happen so often. And so a lot of brothers got on a post and they were like, what does black men have to do with this? You know, if you want to be upset with someone, blame the police. And they just outright attacked the young sister. And so I got on the post and I was just saying that that I believe that it is my belief that things like this happen in the black community because black men as a collective aren't respected. And I was saying that, you know, this stuff doesn't go on like in the Jewish communities. You can't go into their communities, you know, drug their women, you know, beat them up, drug them, and gang rape them. Like it's not happening. Right. Not in the Jewish community, not in the Asian. Yeah, you know, and so, you know, I just basically showed my support for the young sister, and I did what she was doing. She wasn't trying to attack, you know, black men or put black men down. She was just saying, hey, you know, I really believe that if black men, you know, stood up in our community, this stuff wouldn't happen as often as it does. And I actually agree with her. And again, that's no, you know, disrespect, you know, to our brothers. You know, I love our brothers, but I'm telling you, if our brothers organized and began patrolling the neighborhoods and controlling and shutting things down, these things wouldn't happen.
I mean, everyone knows that the male of whatever race is the protector. So therefore, people handle women of a certain race according to how they view the men of that race.
Exactly.
If people view the men of that race as protectors of those women, then they're going to do what they want to those women. So that should speak volumes to black men, as opposed to seeing that as an attack. I think that's our problem. We too often we speak to respond and not to understand. Listen to what a person is saying before you get offended, because even in you being offended, it doesn't mean that there's no truth there. Who gives a shit if you get offended? If it's true, it's true.
Right.
Right. It's true, and it is true. It is true. It's true. We gotta get rid of our fear of death, and incarceration.
Thank you.
Those are the things that I think that's in the way, you know. And but it's a slow death. Oppression is a very slow death. But it's the same. You come to the same situation. You know what I mean? If somebody is destroying you're denied economically resources to take care of your family. You got people coming in your community that demean your women in your face,
That's right.
and you do nothing. That's a slow death. You know, and you don't have a way in which to sustain your community, to bring resources in your community, to maintain a community, it's still death. You know, it's how you're going to. It really is really coming down to how you are going to, approach death. You know what I mean? Are you going to let them paralyze you with fear of death, or are you going to man up? You know, that's what it's coming down to. We come into a situation is that, and a lot of our friends who are college graduates don't agree with this, but we're gonna have to fight these motherfuckers.
Come on.
That's what it's coming down to, you know. And whether it be in Africa, whether it be here, you know, we're gonna have to man up, and we're gonna have to deal with these motherfuckers. You know, that's what it's coming to.
That's real talk. Real practical situation that happened. This white dude had approached me about a sister. Now I know this white dude was married, and he came to me and was like, "Listen, you know, I find so and so very attractive." And he was talking about a sister. And the approach me was like I was down for what he was saying, and I had to step to him, like, wait a minute. First of all, you married, and second of all, this is a sister.
Yep.
And the way you talking about this sister was very disrespectful. And so, and the sister, me and her weren't that cool, but it was just the fact that he was looking at like a black woman could just be easily disrespected, and he could come to me, a black man, and that I would like lower my defenses so he can ease on in. Even though me and his sister were not that close, I'm just giving you an example. We're not that close. I raised my standard to say, wait a minute, no. And I checked him.
That's right.
But I think that's what it's saying, you know, if our brothers, you know, put up a fence, like, look, you can't just come up in our community and begin to flirt, you know, say all kind of stuff to our women, and us not check you. It definitely needs to be some type of system set up, some kind of code. And we used to have that code, man, in the black community.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you had to really bring game if you was a white dude, Puerto Rican, to step to our sisters. You know what I'm saying? But now it's so weakened, man. I mean, you got brothers, you got white dudes that's harder than black dudes. And I'm like, what's going on, man? But we need to raise the standard, like, look, where is the African consciousness here? Centered consciousness. Forget this foolish, because you dress in black. I'm talking about your mind, your heart. Are you centered in African consciousness? Are you just bringing this bullshit?
Yes.
Excuse me, this bullshit to I'm saying, come on, you got to get out. It's time out for that.
That's right.
First, let me backtrack. I apologize for being late. Peace.
Oh, no, you were good. That was beautiful.
Yeah, very real. Very real.
I apologize for being late. What's up, family?
Hi, Queen.
What's happening, Queen? Kings.
Hey.
Hey, I missed y'all.
Hey, we missed you, sis.
I know you went to session getting it in. How was your session?
It was great. It was great.
Nice.
Working on my record, putting some horns down. So
excellent, sis.
yeah, loving that hat.
Oh, thanks, sis. I had it for a few years.
I got the scarf. I got to get the hat.
I got a beanie, but I don't got the hat like that. I need to get one. I got one. Actually, you know what, sis? I'm gonna send it to you because this lady made me one. But when she gave it to me, I quickly noticed that it was for someone who got locks. So really, I've only wore it twice because I don't have anything to fill it. So I'm gonna send it to you.
Oh man, please do, sis. You know, which one? Look who you talking about, me or Sister Camille?
Oh, shit, both of y'all got dreads.
Oh, okay.
We have to do a lotto. Look, we're gonna do a lotto and do a drawing.
Yeah.
I wanted to.
We're gonna have to be odds evens.
Lord, we got to get moving, family. It is 8:20. We have 11 more.
All right, what page we on? What page?
Let's go.
We
Let's
on
go.
353, a refrain, wealth and power. Kick it off, Sister Camille.
Woo! 353. Hold on here. Let me find it. I just opened my book. Hey, 353.
We almost halfway through.
Oh yeah, we wrote
I thought
tonight.
we was on the other chapter.
No, we wish. We still here.
Dang. Okay, you got me in a hot chair. I'm like, oh, let me see. Okay. A refrain, wealth and power. Stories of Korean Americans, white Americans, and other ethnic Americans overwhelmingly demonstrate the substantial positive correlation between ethnic self-centered identity and the accumulation of wealth and political and various other forms of power. Under the regime of American capitalism, these forms of power are ultimately founded on the ownership and control of property, resources, means of production, and of vital and influential institutions. This brings us directly to the point of the political economic powerlessness of America's largest minority group, Africans in America. And I like to go down to the bottom. All right, let me read this. The Black economist David Swinton, in a lengthy series of annual reports regarding the economic status of African Americans for the National Urban League's The State of Black America in 1993, has noted time and time again that the persisting relative inequality in the current economic status of Black Americans reflects the persistence of limited economic power. He further noted that in many respects, the absolute and relative labor market position of African Americans worsened over the 12 years of the Reagan-Bush era, 1980 to 1992. The central tendency of the group as a whole has been stagnation or retrogression in absolute status and increased disparities in relative status. And they had a new report out, and we haven't grown in 15 years economically.
Nope. I read the same report, sis.
Yeah. I'd like to go to 354.
All right.
Number one, income either in the form of the earnings from assets or in the form of the services provided by the asset. Thus, the individual or group that owns more will also have higher income and consumption, all else equal. Number two, ownership of wealth is important because owners organize and control production either directly or indirectly in a capitalistic system. They determine the quantity, location, and nature of investment, how much, what type, and whose resources to employ, and they determine how much, what type, and whose goods and services to purchase. Thus, ownership enables an individual or group to have greater influence on the development, employment, and remuneration of the human and non-human resources. If the African American community is to exercise effective power and influence in American society and in the world, then it must concomitantly exercise ownership and control of some of America's and the world's important economic resources.
That's a fact. And remember in the previous chapter, he said ownership is sovereignty.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's all I kept thinking about. So he's saying we got to, the name of the game, in control.
Yeah.
And that is the theme. That's the theme that I keep, that is the thing that I keep hearing, reiterated, Dr. Amos Wilson, that we have to own and control.
And keep control.
And control what is needed. We're going to keep emphasizing that. We need some grocery stores, gas stations. We need more vital, we need to control more vital resources. We don't control any of that.
Right.
Yeah, we need to hold on to our money and stop, just frivolously giving it away.
Because we can't afford to, like Baba said.
That don't support us. Yeah, nobody
do it.
Nobody buys anything from us. Nobody shares their cultural valuables with us. They come into our community, they come to our parties, they come to everything, and they steal it.
That's right. Let's kick it off, family. The Asian Brotherhood. So Baba starts to tell us about the Asians and the way that they amass their wealth, which of course we know that he's been talking about the Asians, specifically the Koreans and the Japanese for a while. So we know that they move in a way that is family oriented, and they set up their own banks per se, using their own wealth, and that is how they fund different businesses. So here, what I had highlighted here, family, was on page 355. The middle paragraph. What is relevant to our discussion here is the role ethnicity plays in the remarkable economic growth of East Asia, a role played in the growth and development of peoples, nations, empires, and regions throughout history. We have already indicated that the business classes of Southeast Asia are dominated by the ethnic Chinese. So basically, then he goes on to talk about the type of system that they use, but it's a like I mentioned, it's like a loan-based, family-funded type of system, just like the Japanese, just like the Koreans, just like the Africans. If anybody wanted to add anything, you could. That was pretty much the gist that I got from the sum of the Brotherhood Collective.
Yep, I think I have. Yeah, page 355. Yeah, it's dominated by ethnic. Yep, connections. So he emphasizes here connections and relationships, personal ties. So yeah, that was it, sis. That's what I have.
All right, page 356. Moving on, in the middle of the page, he says that more accurately, it may be said that ethnicity and culture which stresses cooperation, altruism, work, education, merit, thriftiness, concern for the future, solidarity, creativity, innovativeness, ethical behavior are key elements for markedly improving a nation's or community's economic fortunes. He says, isn't it curious that ethnic African Americans are taught and motivated to realize the very opposite values, that they should downgrade or deny their ethnicity, allow other groups to monopolize their markets, et cetera, et cetera. So basically what Baba is saying here is that ethnicity and culture, it stresses a certain type of cooperation that is needed in order to get things done. But those are the key factors that we have to have in common in order to build, is our culture and our ethnicity. And that typically is the key finding factor in which people build off of. They have a similar culture, similar ethnicity. But like you said, Dr. Ma, we want to build off everyone's culture. You know, right. We want to be a little bit of everything. We can't, it's not okay just to be African. We have to be African, but accepted to the world instead of just worrying about ourselves and doing business with the world like everyone else does.
Absolutely. Right. And fearing that, and we also have that fear that when we become more ethnic centered and more concerned with self, you know, people say, I don't want to come off as a racist.
Right.
You ever hear people say that?
No, that one kills me.
You know, like I don't want, you know, like for example, and I'm gonna be pulling Jay out of his school soon. His school principal didn't want to show Meltrek. And I mean, and, you know, sis, you know, I put the multicultural face on it, right, to get it in, but she watched it. And she said that the information wasn't centered on all cultures. It was just centered around Africa. And so she didn't want to show.
But 99% of the information that's taught in school, especially as far as history-wise, is not centered around multicultures.
Exactly.
Bullshit. Get the fuck out of here.
That's right.
So if you notice this, and you know, when you and I get offline, I give you the name of his school. But you've seen the schools that I've gone to, you know, when I put up the videos. And I'm going to give you the name of his school, and you're going to say, yep, I've never been at Jalen's school.
Mm-hmm.
Been in his school, and that's because the principal looked at Meltrek, and she said that the information, you know, it didn't pertain to cultures. It just, you know, it just taught children about Africa, and she didn't want to show it. So, you know,
well, my thing is, and they feel it's all right to just show fake history, but it's to show African history. That's crazy to me. Getting down, and then our people have that mentality as well, as if, you know, we owe people something we owe no one anything because we have we have provided a place for the entire world to feed off of. We are like a bread basket.
That's right.
Absolutely. I mean, in Africa,
we got people talking about that about Black History Month too. They feel like you know, it's divisive and it's. What do you mean? You got European history all year round. What are you talking about? I don't understand.
All year round. All year round. All year.
But you're supposed to want to be a European. That's really what it is.
Exactly. That's the goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you.
Right. That's what I say. You got that.
All right. So
Okay,
let's keep it
family. White Brotherhood Collective. Go ahead, Dr. Maat.
All right. The only thing that I have highlighted here, I was laughing when Baba called when he said mythic structures such as law, politics, and religion. But anyway, I don't have anything highlighted right after the section begins, but I do have something on page 357 where he says that Black men, particularly if they insist on not denying their African descent, will rarely, if ever, be accepted as the same as white men by the White Brotherhood Collective. So he's saying that white men have a brotherhood collective. So people can say what they want to say about Trump, but Trump is definitely in that White Brotherhood collective. But anyway, He said their achievement of equal status within this brethren is highly unlikely or impossible. The White Brotherhood Collective, as such, functions primarily as the central instrument of white power, a power in good part based on its subordination and exploitation of African and other non-white peoples, as well as the lower classes of white peoples. Therefore, Blacks cannot simultaneously be at one with or at the same time separate subjects of white power. Right. And I have right here, as J.C. Smith contends, monopoly is the essence of power. I like that statement right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me underline it. I have it highlighted. Underline it. Monopoly is the essence of power. The exercise of power by the white American ruling elite requires that it retains a monopoly of three kinds of power. All right. Now, remember in the previous chapter, Dr. Amos Wilson talks about the basis of power. I believe, Sister Alima, that was in chapter 2.
Yes.
Where he talks about the basis of power. And he gave an acronym, IEMP, ideological, economic, military, and I believe he said politics. Political. Right. So I think call it IEMP. So here he's naming three of the power bases, three kinds of power. He says physical or military power, economic power, and ideological power. Physical power entails the capacity to use brute force on other persons or peoples. Economic power entails the capacity to grant or withhold economic benefits, whether in terms of money, property, or resources. Ideological power consists of the capacity to affect other people's action by persuasion. So it can be, they control these bases of power.
Yes, they do.
So C.W. Wright Mills, in his seminal and controversial analysis of power in America, in his popular book, The Power Elite, he says power in America, according to Mills, is possessed and controlled by a single interlocking power structure of power, a power elite, whose power is concentrated at the top of three domains: the corporation chieftains, the political directorate, governmental organizations, and the warlords, military organizations. Other important institutions are subordinate to and generally supportive of those three major institutions of power. All right. So he says the brotherhood in which we are most interested in at the moment is the corporate brotherhood of the white male collective. So the brotherhoods of producers, merchants, and bankers who organize and control economic power. These brotherhoods, he says, these brotherhoods together represent the apex of the white pyramidal structure, since economic power is the primary means of directly and indirectly controlling military and ideological power. The insatiable drive to accumulate wealth, which characterizes capitalism in the white male corporate brotherhood, is synonymous with the drive to dominate, to exercise power primarily through the withholding and granting of capital. Thus, the free market capitalism central source of the power of the white brotherhood collective cannot be truly free, and access to it not be really free available to other groups, especially a brotherhood collective of African males, members of a subject people. The market system, as created and monopolized by the white brotherhood collective, is an economic instrument by which the white male corporate elite disciplines and orders American society, by which it maintains its quintessential class and race-based social order. The market system is the white brotherhood collective's instrument of power and social control. Its primary instrument for maintaining the racial and social inequalities that are essential to its very existence and functionality. So then I have this star right here. He said, capitalism is a social and political regime wherein those who own and control property, for example, the means of production, land, capital, equipment, and other resources, enter into unequal contracts with propertyless workers, i.e. workers and laborers, with classes of people who are unable to secure a living unless they gain access to privately owned resources or wealth, and who in exchange for wage payments must surrender all claims to the products of their labor to the owners of capital. So I actually have this in an asterisk where he's actually defining, you know, what capitalism really is.
Yes.
Yes, sis. So at the bottom, I have the American market economy, dominated as it is by the white brotherhood collective, is not a free market. So he always says that this market isn't really free. It's controlled and it's dominated by a group of people, okay? So he said the market isn't free, for access to it is withheld and granted by this brotherhood based on any criteria it chooses. One exclusionary criterion includes being of African descent. Consequently, the white man's free market imprisons the black man when it does not enslave him. Excuse me, y'all. It is a system that by its very logic, structural dynamics, rules, and the ideology which justifies it, operates to maintain the supreme power of the white brotherhood collective, which it monopolizes. Could somebody take it? My throat is dry.
Okay, sis. I'm talking about, okay, where you was at? I'm sorry, I was on my phone.
I'm at the bottom right here. I can finish. The power of the white brotherhood collective. It's coterminous. It says, with the power of the market, forces themselves, power which rests on conventionalized responses to its movements by the propertylist, the program acceptance of its legitimacy and ready obedience to its demands. So Dr. Amos Wilson is saying that this white brotherhood collective, they created this capitalistic society, right? Wherein they own and control the resources, and that this collective brotherhood is very exclusive. And he's also saying that the people, the propertyless people, so we're talking about the laborers, right? We're talking about the laborers and workers in this capitalistic society, the capitalistic system. He's saying that we've been programmed to accept this system as legitimate. So we go out here, we think it's legitimate to exist in a culture of inequality.
That's right.
Isn't that crazy, sis? And I think I just froze. But isn't that crazy that we've been conditioned and programmed to accept that there's a culture of inequality?
That's right.
All right. And so, you know, right here at the top of page 359, it says only on the rarest and most desperate occasions, unsatisfied individuals attempt to disobey the market system by violating its dispensations. In the vast majority of cases, its provisioning arrangements are accepted without question. We don't even question the system, Sister Alima. We don't even question this system. So he's saying that, you know, usually is accepted without question. And the law, which silently stands behind the market, remains uninvoked, but not on the account unneeded. All right. Capitalism, like tribal society, imperial kingdoms, feudalisms, and socialist states are at the bottom, regimes of power and privilege built on the granite of family ties, community norms, and above all, I want to emphasize this, above all on a deeply inculcated habit of subordination. All right? Habit of subordination says that the white Brotherhood collectives' uncontested monopoly of capital and the dominating power it undergirds rests largely on a would-be Black Brotherhood collective's habit of subordination, on its autonomized individuality, in its vitiating ambivalence in regard to its collective identity and unwillingness to use its identity as a basis for acquiring capital and property and deriving from them the power to challenge that held by its white counterparts. All right. So while these groups, I'm skipping down, while these groups have made and are making use of their ethnicity to found Brotherhood collectives as a mean of advancing their economic and political interests, Black Americans are discouraged from utilizing the same mechanism, most often by their well-meaning friends and by an uninformed assimilationist bourgeoisie leadership establishment. Ashe.
Ashe.
That was deep.
Woo! He broke that down.
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Amos Wilson. That was. I wish I had like a bomb sound on the computer where I could do boom.
I'm gonna have one next week. I'm gonna have one next week, fam.
Because he just blew that up. He blew that up.
Does anybody know what Dr. Amos Wilson died of?
Yeah, I was told, but I can't. I was told, and I was told not to say anything. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's buried right there in New York. I want to get up there. We're supposed to be organizing something with. I spoke to Sababu a few weeks ago, and we're supposed to be organizing, something in the spring where we go up there and we pay homage to him and go to where his remains are, and maybe do a little ceremony there, pour some libations, and So we're talking about organizing that in the near, hopefully in the spring.
Respect, no doubt.
Yeah, but he died rather young. He was only 45, 46. He was in his 40s.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
All right, so the Brotherhood, the Black Brotherhood Collective. Somebody go ahead and kick it off.
One of the brothers, go ahead.
We're starting at, let me get where we at here.
Page 360.
Okay, the Black Brotherhood Collective. Okay.
Yes.
It is interesting and important to reiterate the fact that the primary financiers funding the phenomenal growth and development of Southeastern Asia are the ethnic Chinese. They are also the leading entrepreneurs and power brokers setting the pace and defining the form of the rapidly maturing world-class economy. What is equally interesting and important is the fact that the leading Asian financiers and power brokers are Asian males. They are, in essence, an Asian Brotherhood collective, an informal and formal fraternal group of males who combine their resources and talents, utilize common languages and symbol systems, and social bonding rituals and values in order to empower themselves to achieve mutually beneficial ends. In this, they follow a long and grand tradition on beginning perhaps with the hunting band and apparently founded in the primal genetic urge to humans to socially bond together to form enduring social institutions, define constituent ways of relating to the interacting with each other within gender ethnic boundaries. As J.C. Smith contends, the proliferation of male fraternal organizations throughout the world and throughout history reflects a male complex which drives the male to band together into close-knit groups. I think that still ties into what we talked about back to religion and culture. Whether these are sacred priesthoods, monastic orders, military orders, secret societies, fraternal orders, or merely private men's clubs, they are a product of behavior which reflects a psychological basis. It ties into everything we just talked about. For better or worse, dominant corporate structures, whether economic and or political or religious regimes, have generally been founded, developed, and controlled by brotherhood collectives. males often belong to the same ethno-cultural or racial group. This is still true today. Men band together against other men and in games of war, sport, or business, struggle against each other for supremacy or in defense of their independence and liberty. The struggle for economic supremacy or self-defense between ethnic bands of males may in good part be seen as more benign form of warfare operating essentially according to rules of the game, the strategies and tactics, which are in essence the same as similar to those of war, with essentially the same or similar outcomes. I highlighted all of that. Reason why I highlighted all of that is because he tied into the brotherhood, the spiritual systems, the culture,
Right.
all of the particular systems in which they fuse a culture to a common interest. You know, Dr. Amos Wilson, if we go chapter by chapter, what Dr. Amos is really locking into us is that people have a collective sense of value, a collective sense of culture, a collective sense of a spiritual system in which binds them together to advance themselves in the world. You know, and I mean, this whole section here just ties into all of the various groups that they use to formulate a system which helps them to merge and ritualize their collectiveness. That's what I got from that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Brother Travis. So you stopped at basis, psychological basis, or you went further?
Okay, you want to go further? I can go further.
No, we don't have to go further. I have exactly what you highlighted right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that whole section was just, you know, see, Dr. Amos Wilson, what I've been getting from his readings, going chapter by chapter, he's given different scenarios of the same ideology. You know, he's showing us how people bond and create fraternal orders or organizations of culture for power. You know,
Right.
whether that be a spiritual institution, whether that be, you know, a fraternal order. What Dr. Amos Wilson consistently has shown us chapter by chapter is that people create, people who rule, create culture and create institutions in their ideologies in which that they put themselves as leaders, as you know, penetrating systems to obtain power. You know, we're the only people who are Puritans in our spiritual quest of trying to connect to God and be, you know, pious. But what Dr. Amos Wilson has consistently shown, through whatever ideology that they have, they collectively come together to empower themselves.
Exactly.
People who are
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's right. So at the top of page 361, I remember in this, well, you know, we don't have to read all of this. He's just saying that at one point, you know, this is like in 1993, that a bunch of celebrities came together to form a Black business network. He said these were Black males or the likes of Ron Brown, Commerce Secretary, he says, since deceased, Earl Graves, owner of Black Enterprise, Percy Sutton, owner, Inner City Broadcasting, General Colin Powell, former chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff, Robert Johnson, CEO, so you know this is old, CEO, Black Entertainment Television, John Johnson, owner of Johnson Publications, Ebony, Bill Cosby, Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson, Julius Irving, Irving Magic Johnson, Spike Lee, Michael Jordan, Bruce, owner of Queen City Broadcasting, Philadelphia, Coca-Cola Bottling, A. Barry Rand, Executive VP Operations of Xerox, VP of Operations of Xerox, John Jacobs, former president of the National Urban League, among other Blacks, prominent in business, politics, religion, and entertainment. Now, Dr. Amos Wilson is basically saying in the next couple of pages he doesn't believe that they will be that this particular business, Black business network, will benefit, the African American community,
Exactly.
and even the African community in general, because he said that most of the people that I named in the list, he said most of the elite, they belong to the same civic organizations, from the NAACP to the Urban League. He said, and are for the most part racial assimilationists.
Mhm.
All right. So he says this puts into question whether they possess or will develop the know-how. I'm at the top of page 366. Develop the know-how and the persistence of will to advance the interests of the African American community and of the international African community, or any other interests than their own insular concerns. All right. So he's basically saying, look, I don't think that they'll be able to do this. And then he took a quote from one of them. It was Llewellyn. Was it Llewellyn? No, it wasn't Llewellyn. Someone by the name of Vernon E. Jordan.
Yeah, I remember Jordan.
That said, in order to make it, you have to transcend race in this progress, right? So he's saying that, look, he said their assimilationist orientations and client status relative to their white patrons and sponsors, and their need to be fully accepted in white society in order to acquire wealth, freedom, and respectability, to achieve their acceptance into the white corporate elite as honorary white men, require their self-negation, self-alienation, the transcendence of their race. Note that whites and other ethnics do not have to meet such stringent requirements or rely on not reminding whites their ethnic difference. So he's saying that this is how he knows that this Black business network will not benefit the African American community, or even the international African community.
Very true.
So let me see at the bottom. Can someone start with the network and read to the very end?
The network. Oh, what page is that?
Bottom of page 364.
Okay. The network, or as we shall refer to it, the Black Brotherhood Collective, is unlikely to empower the African American community for the very reason that its assimilationist yearnings motivated to disassociate itself from its power bases, its African ethnicity, African-centered identity and consciousness. This establishment renders itself powerless by its futile attempts to merge with the white Brotherhood Collective, and thereby regain the manhood it has lost, not regained by dint of its own will to power. In trying to transcend race, it becomes neither Black nor white, and therefore cannot be accepted into full membership by either Black or white brotherhoods. It can only exist in limbo, in an in-between, identityless, pointless world. The white Brotherhood Collective, or any fully functional Brotherhood Collective, captures and yields power, not because it transcends race, but because it single-mindedly pursues its self-centered interests, not because it wishes to disassociate itself from its ethno-cultural group, but to the contrary, because of it. For members of the white Brotherhood Collective, the group mind it generates through exclusive associations functions first as an object of the ego ideal into which the self can be merged, and second, it functions as an instrument of power. Individuals seek both to merge the self into the group and to merge the group into the self. Part of the group out of him. The group is felt and enjoyed by its individual members, the individual alone, and shares a sense of omnipotence. If a Black, yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah, he just said that the self is emerged in the group, and the group emerged in the self, and that is how you become powerful.
Right.
Totally.
Because if you're out here just running around by yourself, you have no protection. That's why we have no resources, because everyone is running around trying to be an individual.
That's right. And that's what's
Instead of
perpetuated in culture. That's what's perpetuated in the media, is to be your own man and to be individualistic, and to that's their game, is to keep us, you know, and they put people who are like a Jay-Z or him and his wife, or any Kanye West. They put people who perpetually are not in the struggle for liberation of Black people. They put people who are consumers of resources to you know, into this bling, into this strong individualism. That's the way that they're trying to condition us, is to not be group oriented. They put us into they put people before us who are individualists and who are consumers.
Right. Okay. If a Black Brotherhood collective is to successfully counter this group, it too must, in no uncertain terms, proclaim its Africanicity.
Yes.
And act in terms of its group identity. Yes. Each of its members, too, must merge the self into the group and merge the group into the self.
Yeah.
It must gain the loyal fellowship of its community by being the community's primary patron, protector, and nurturer. It must become the primary arbiter of African community values, beliefs, modes of consciousness, tastes, and desires as it acts to facilitate the ownership and control of its internal markets by the community itself. To facilitate increases in the community's savings rate so that it can accumulate large amounts of capital and property under the control of its own financial institutions. To facilitate the development of large cooperatively owned financial and commercial institutions and networks whose resources can be utilized to penetrate the white dominated market system successfully and influence, as well as help to finance the growth and development of African nations and peoples across the diaspora. To facilitate the political organization of the community such that it can not only influence American domestic governmental policies for its own benefit, but also for the benefit of African peoples everywhere. Achievable not by playing by all of the mythological, the market system as hypocritically broadcast by the White Brotherhood Collective, but by mastering which the resources and power potential of both the national and international African community are enhanced and are owned and controlled by Africans and are transformed into instruments of Black power.
Wow.
Deep. You know who I was thinking about was Boyce Watkins. He has a powerful, 100,000 members were online for the big currency seminar he just did. And lots of people in the group are making, money off the big currency, include me. I'm part of the group. But I was just thinking, if he had a nationalistic concept like Dr. Amos Wilson, and to organize Black people into a Black United Front, what Dr. Amos Wilson is coming with. People from all over the world is chiming in to Boyce Watkins from South Africa, from the Caribbean, all over Africa. It was 100,000 people who chimed into the Bitcoin seminar that he put together, and many of the people who were being taught by Boyce Watkins, like myself, bought it low, and made it, Bitcoins is 10 times of what I paid for it now. But
it's like 18,000. Yeah, I
pay for it.
I'm in the stock market, so I understand.
Right. I had $5 Bitcoin. Let me tell you how I had a $5 Bitcoin, and it's $120 now. I mean, just when I first started off, and that's when I really got in tune with Boyce Watkins was saying. I went into Coinbase and bought a $5 Bitcoin. Just put $5, bought $5 worth of Bitcoin. That $5 became $140.
Wow.
And so I said, damn, let me put a couple of grand in this. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, if he had a nationalistic concept of what we're dealing with here today, Boyce Watkins,
I thought he was trying to empower Black people, so he's not nationalist.
He's more a Tony Brown type. You know what I mean? He knows the issue. Okay. You know what I mean? He knows Black issues. and he articulates black issues, but he doesn't have the nationalist discipline. You know what I mean? What Dr. Amos was coming with. I like Boyce Watkins. Don't get me wrong. I like him, and I learned a lot. I buy a lot of his material. You know what I mean? And I'm a member of his part of his.
I'm taking some of his classes.
Right. I'm a member of his Bitcoin program. You know, I buy everything that he talks about on Bitcoin or stock investment. I buy it. You know, but if he had the nationalist appeal of a Dr. Amos Wilson, because people all over the world chime into Boyce Watkins. You know what I mean? If he put together a nationalist a nationalist agenda like a Garvey, or what he could do, because a lot of the educated blacks that are in investing, engineering, and things like that are part of the group. But if he had that Garvey concept of, okay, I got all these people in my group, let's build us a nation. You know what I'm saying? Let's build us. Let's put some institutions in some black communities. You know what I mean? He's making a lot of people wealthy. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on Dr. Boyce Watkins.
No, that's a critical assessment. That's
I'm not hating on him because I'm following him. But I'm saying is if he had, because so many people follow him, and they're making a lot of money off Boyce Watkins. What if he had a nationalist agenda that he utilized because of so many people following him? That let's build a school. Let's take this money and acquire, like these white people are doing in Detroit. People who are living in houses in Detroit for $500, $900, or buying houses of people who live in it and then renting them back to them. It's a guy who put $1 million into the market in Detroit and controlled 300 pieces of property of people living in it, own their property and just renting their property back to them. He owns the property now because they lost him on taxes. And they're staying in the property, and all he's doing is saying, okay, you pay me rent every month and you can stay there. That's what they're doing here in Detroit. We lost Detroit. Detroit is gone. But I'm saying is that's what they did. They bought the taxes on the property, paid off the taxes on the property through taxes, tax liens, paid them off, and then people, and you can own the property. If you go to the auction, these white people are buying properties for $1,000, and the properties are appraising for $40,000-$50,000. What if Boyce Watkins put a network together and control things like that? He has the volume. What I'm trying to say,
right?
He has the masses of the people who listen to him. If he had a nationalist agenda, he could be like a Garvey. He really could.
Yeah, he's a smart man. You gotta,
He's a brilliant brother, but I'm saying is if he had the nationalist agenda like a Garvey, because people all over, and people was coming from South Africa, all over the world, into the meeting for the Bitcoin. I'm just like, and they buying all this Bitcoin, and they're making money. I'm like, damn, what if he centralized these people and me and myself, you know what I mean, to begin to let's go into these communities and let's build us a nation. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, purchase a town. I mean,
he has the volume.
Those are some of the things we have to think about.
He has the volume. He has the he's conscious, brother, and I like Dr. Boyce Watkins, and it is about being aware of things. You know what I mean? I don't know of his awareness of black nationalism. I don't know, because I never talked to him, but he has the masses of black people who follow him for investment advice. If he channeled that into some type of black nationalist agenda, he could really be something, because he is conscious on a lot of levels. Dr. Boyce was very conscious. You know what I mean? That's why
he put those videos up every day.
I listen to a lot of black people with pertaining to money, but I follow Boyce Watkins the most, and I made money, off him, a lot of money, and of his, recommendations. I got into Bitcoin because of Boyce Watkins, but making 10 and 12 times of my money. What if, and all of these people like myself, if he had a nationalist agenda, wow, we could be something. We could be something.
Wow.
I mean, has Dr. Boyce Watkins, I know this is off topic and we're going to close up. I just want to know, has he ever presented his agenda? I know that
Boyce Watkins is, his agenda is to get families, and I don't hate on this, is to create a situation where people become financially independent and they can pass on money and wealth to generational wealth is his platform. That's his basic platform, is generational wealth. The problem with
you know what I'm learning, brother?
Go ahead.
I think that it's great to want to enrich people, but when you enrich people who don't have a culture that teaches them what to do with their money, that's the problem. So you know, this generation, we can get together and create wealth and say, okay, let's pass this to the next generation. But what I'm learning is that we need a culture that teaches us what to do with this money. You got folks that he's probably going to enrich, and they'll probably be giving their money right back to white hands because they don't have a culture that teaches them what to do with their money.
Exactly. And if
that's the problem now.
If Dr. Maat was ahead of that, we'd have something going. See, we'd have something going. That's right. That's right. But see, we need people, and I'm going to say this. Okay, you know, my background is in information technology, engineering. That's my background, network security. The people who in the know, who study this daily and live their lives by that and research that, that's the people who need to be leading. People like Dr. Maat, who are teachers and educators. Those are the people, Dr. Umar Johnson, you know, people like that who are educators who on a daily basis deal with our youth. Those are the people that need to be empowered.
Right.
Now, I love what Dr. Boyce Watkins is
because
doing.
That's
a lot of wealthy people. You know, I made a lot of money off Boyce Watkins. I'm not gonna hate on him, you know, but he doesn't have the nationalistic appeal, meaning that he doesn't have a program that's going to take all of these people like me and other people like, you know, who are making money off of him to centralize this into, let's put this money into something. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, we just big, you know, people who I listen to in their testimonies, they big niggas now. You know, I hate to say it like that, but they, you know, they paid $5,000 in Bitcoin. They at $400,000 now. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But what they gonna do with $400,000? But I hear a lot of them saying they bought a nice home, they put money aside for their children, but nothing about a black agenda. You know, they you know, they accumulated, but they bought some real estate, but nothing as what Boyce Watkins could do. He could buy up Detroit. With all of the black people that making money off Boyce Watkins, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
He could buy up Detroit. People buying, again, people are buying, picking $500 and paying taxes off and owning properties and renting the property back to them at $500 a month, so they get their money back the first month that they get the property. They say, give me $500 a month. You can stay in the property, and they get their money back, and they got residual income buying tax property. What if Boyce Watkins said, okay, y'all, I'm going to take this whole group, and we're just going to buy up tax lien properties in Detroit. We can take that bad boy out. But see, he is about, his philosophy is generational wealth, creating millionaires. Your next generation should be a millionaire. That's his MO. You know what I mean? That, you know, it's still on that individual level of individual wealth. It's not a collective nationalist agenda. That's where I separate from Dr. Boyce with. I love him. You know, I made a lot of money off of it. You know what I mean? I got all my money. I paid. He wanted $500 a month. I'm paying $500 a month. I got 5 times that back. You know what I mean? Off of his lessons. But you know, it's not a nationalist agenda. That's the problem. Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, you know, like you said, you are, you know, enriching, you know, individuals. And again, I mean, I believe that that's going to help. I believe that definitely helps. you know, but what I'm saying is when you give a bunch of individuals money and they don't know what to do with money, there's the problem.
Yes.
So,
He can own Detroit with the group that he has together. Like I said, 100, just one class he taught on Bitcoin. We had 100,000 people in that group. You know what I mean? On the Bitcoin class, 100,000. What if
But
he
that's
said,
because it was about making money. I noticed that you keep emphasizing at 100,000, and that's because it's about their personal individual gain. So you fuck
right.
around.
but educate the people.
100,000 people were interested in how can I make more money for myself. I don't
Check this out. When Dr.
What's
Ben
so
died,
impressive?
I agree, sister. When Dr. Ben died, good example. When Dr. Ben passed, made his transition, you don't say death, made his transitions into the Google. When Dr. Ben passed, all of those people that was at his funeral, if we put $1 to Dr. Ben, just $1. Dr. Ben was in a nursing home. You made his transition to a nursing home. If everybody gave $1 a month, everybody was at the funeral. Look what Dr. Ben could have been set up with $100,000. With 100,000 people in a group, if you give $1, you got $100,000 a month. $100,000 a month. Just $1. So everybody give $1 a month, and we're gonna get some tax property. What could he done? You know what I'm saying? He got the numbers, but he don't have the consciousness to the level that I think that, you know,
Exactly.
If we had somebody that was in place like that, just $1, man. Give me $1 a month, and I'm gonna buy tax property, and we're gonna take Detroit. We're gonna buy Detroit. Give me $1.
I'd be willing to do something like that. I just haven't. We've like I said, we've invested in a couple of initiatives that still have yet to kick off the ground, and it's just like,
yeah, he is doing it. He has the numbers. He has a background as far as economically. He has a PhD in economics. He has the ability to kick some things off, but you know he just doesn't have that nationalist appeal. You know, just don't have that.
Wow. All right, let's close on now, family. Let's close on now. Panel, tell the viewers where to find you.
family, this is Lily La Poete Speaks. You can find me at www.lilylapoetespeaks.com. Go there every week, family, to pick up the links. If you want to join the panel, click the join the panel link. And if you want to listen in the discussion, you click the active discussion link. I am author of Perceptions of a Misplaced African, Volume 1, available on Kindle, on Amazon, and hard copy on lilylapoetespeaks.com. Thank you for joining us. Peace.
Peace and Black Power, family. My name is Camille Gaynor Jones. You can find me on www.camillegaynorjones.com, as well on Facebook, Jones Page 3. Producer, an educator, and a lecturer. You can go to my site. I have a CD, A Girl from Queens, instructional DVD entitled The Adventures of Drummette.com for all the young drummers, up and coming musicians. I say I love this group, love being here every Sunday, love the family, and Ashe.
Ashe. I think she broke up. Or did I break up? Brother Travis.
Do a nutshell, family. This is Brother Travis out of Detroit. I'm an IT professional. I work in cybersecurity. I can be reached at Shamsu Netcher on Facebook. Again, you need to chime in every week. This is a powerful group. We are going to read a lot of powerful material that can transform your life, that can information that can empower you. Again, this is what I've studied with a lot of people. What this group is aware of the material and the vision of this particular group. This is definitely a group that you want to be a part of. and to begin to understand Black power. Dr. Amos Wilson's material that we are studying this particular group is a must know. And you can continue to chime in. Hotel.
All right, peace and power, family. My name is Dr. Deanna Bailey, also known as dr.maat.msu. I'm adjunct professor at the School of Engineering at Morgan State University. I'm also the co-founder of Anime Productions, which is a company that creates educational tools for children, and particularly children of color. I'm also the executive producer of Meltrek, which is a hip hop animated series that teaches African history from an African perspective. Please support the Meltrek project. Just go to the Google search engine or any search engine for that matter, type in Meltrek, MELTREK, and all of the links to our website. All of the links will pop up. You can view clips of the Meltrek animation series and or purchase the Meltrek products. Thank you for joining us, family. As Brother Shezbu said, we're going to be reading some powerful, powerful literature. This was our first text, and it was heavy. It's a heavy text, but we'll be reading books, by all of our great scholars. And this is a wonderful group, and I hope that you join us each and every Sunday. Peace and power.
Peace.
Peace, peace.